Most people believe alfalfa is the only serious option for livestock feed, but that's not what our ancestors relied on. For centuries, American farmers used a native grass that required no replanting, survived drought without irrigation, and lasted decades on a single planting. That grass is called Eastern Gamagrass, and it quietly outperformed alfalfa in ways that matter for long-term sustainability, cost savings, resilience, and soil health. The knowledge didn't disappear because it stopped working. It was buried when industrial agriculture prioritized short-term yields over generational systems. In this video, I'm uncovering why this forgotten native grass is making a quiet comeback among self-sufficient families and sustainable ranchers. If you believe smart farming is about working with nature, not against it, this channel is for you. I share forgotten animal and agricultural systems like this every week, and subscribing means you won't miss the knowledge most people never learn. Welcome to the Animal Lost Vault. Let's unlock it. This grass matters because it solves a quiet survival problem most livestock owners don't even realize they have: feed dependency. Right now, millions of American ranchers and small farm families rely on alfalfa that must be replanted every 3 to 5 years, requires constant irrigation in dry climates, demands fertilizer applications, and ties them to seed suppliers season after season. That cycle creates financial vulnerability and exhausts the land. Our ancestors understood something different. Eastern Gamagrass, native to most of the eastern United States, was the foundation of sustainable grazing systems long before industrial agriculture taught us to ignore it. This wasn't an inferior alternative. It was a deliberate choice made by families who valued independence, resilience, and multi-generational thinking. Modern systems trained us to measure success by first-year yield and immediate return. But that mindset ignores the total cost of ownership, the environmental impact, and the long-term security of a truly perennial system. Eastern Gamagrass represents a fundamentally different approach. Invest time and patience once and benefit for 20 years or more. The grass grows in large, dense clumps, spreads slowly through underground rhizomes, and sends roots deep into the soil, sometimes reaching 15 feet below the surface. That root architecture is what makes it drought-resistant, flood-tolerant, and nearly indestructible once established. It doesn't require the perfect conditions alfalfa demands. It works with the land as it is. For families managing small acreage, limited water access, or unpredictable weather patterns, that difference is not trivial. It's the difference between a system that depends on external inputs and one that regenerates itself year after year. Eastern Gamagrass also supports soil health in ways annual or short-lived crops cannot. Those deep roots prevent erosion, improve water infiltration, sequester carbon, and create habitat for beneficial insects and ground-nesting birds like quail and prairie chickens. The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service has included Eastern Gamagrass in riparian restoration programs specifically because of its ability to stabilize stream banks and hold soil during heavy rainfall. This is not just about feeding livestock. It's about rebuilding systems that were designed to last, systems that didn't extract value from the land, but worked in partnership with it. That knowledge was never lost. It was simply set aside when short-term thinking took over. Eastern Gamagrass earned the nickname ice cream grass among old-time cattle ranchers, and the name tells you everything you need to know about how livestock respond to it. Animals seek it out, graze it eagerly, and thrive on it throughout the growing season. The reason comes down to palatability, digestibility, and consistent nutritional quality during the months when other forages decline. Data from the USDA Plant Materials Center in Ellsbury, Missouri shows that Eastern Gamagrass maintains crude protein levels of 11 to 13% throughout the growing season, with early spring growth reaching 18%. That spring surge happens precisely when livestock need nutrient-dense feed after winter, supporting weight gain, milk production, and overall health during a critical recovery period. While alfalfa can achieve higher protein levels in optimal conditions, especially in the leafy portions of early cuttings, that quality advantage comes with trade-offs most people don't calculate. Alfalfa protein content drops significantly as the plant matures, and the timing of harvest becomes a narrow window. Miss that window by a week, and feeding value declines sharply. Eastern Gamagrass, by contrast, maintains more consistent quality across a longer harvest period because of its growth structure. Unlike alfalfa, which develops thick, woody stems as it matures, Eastern Gamagrass produces less stem material overall and stays leafier longer. Livestock can digest it more easily, which means better nutrient absorption and less wasted feed. The other factor rarely discussed is production stability during summer heat and drought. Most forages, including alfalfa, experience a noticeable dip in growth and quality during the hottest, driest months. Eastern Gamagrass does not. Its deep root system allows it to access moisture and nutrients far below the surface, keeping it productive when other forages stall. Ranchers in Missouri, Kansas, and Texas have observed that gamagrass pastures stay green and actively growing during July and August dry spells that turn alfalfa fields brown. That consistency translates to reliable feed availability during months when purchased hay becomes expensive or scarce. For beef cattle operations, consistent forage quality matters more than peak protein content. What producers need is steady nutrition that supports healthy weight gain without the roller coaster of boom and bust forage availability. Eastern Gamagrass delivers exactly that. It also works well for horses, sheep, and goats, all of which graze it willingly and maintain good body condition on gamagrass pasture. The plant is not a miracle crop. It will not replace alfalfa for high-production dairy operations focused on maximizing milk yield in confinement systems. But for pasture-based livestock systems, sustainable ranching, and families seeking nutritional security without constant external inputs, Eastern Gamagrass offers a resilient, dependable alternative that our ancestors relied on for good reason. The way our ancestors used Eastern Gamagrass was simple, patient, and designed for the long term. They didn't try to force maximum production in year one. They understood that investing time in establishment would pay dividends for decades. The system worked because it respected the grass's natural growth cycle and never demanded more than the plant could sustainably provide. Here's how they did it. First, they identified suitable land. Eastern Gamagrass thrives on a wide range of soil types, from sandy loam to heavier clay soils, and it tolerates both well-drained uplands and wetter bottomland areas near creeks and rivers. That versatility made it accessible to farmers across different regions and landscapes. All they needed was adequate sunlight and soil that wasn't constantly waterlogged during establishment. No specialized equipment, no imported amendments, no debt. Just land, seed, and time. Second, they planted in early spring after the last frost, when soil temperatures reached 60 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. They used dormant seed planted half an inch to 1 inch deep at a rate of 6 to 8 pounds per acre. Dormant seed required cold stratification over winter, so many farmers planted between December and March, allowing natural freeze-thaw cycles to break seed dormancy. Alternatively, some used stratified seed planted between March and May for faster germination. Either way, the first year was about one thing: root establishment. They did not graze it. They did not harvest it. They allowed the grass to focus all its energy on sending roots deep into the soil and forming strong, healthy clumps. During that first year, they controlled weeds by mowing or light mechanical cultivation, but they left the gamagrass alone. That patience was the foundation of the system's longevity. Third, beginning in year 2, they implemented rotational grazing or strategic hay harvest. Rotational grazing meant moving livestock through divided pasture sections every 3 to 5 days, never allowing animals to overgraze a single area. This gave the grass time to recover, which maintained both forage quality and stand vigor. The key was rest periods of approximately 45 days between grazing cycles, allowing regrowth and preventing stand degradation. For hay production, they cut once or twice during the growing season, typically in mid-June to early July before seed heads fully matured. That timing preserved both yield and nutritional quality. The system sustained itself because it worked with the grass's natural behavior. Eastern Gamagrass spreads slowly through short rhizomes and produces new shoots, called tillers, from the base of established clumps. Those tillers are highest in protein during early spring, providing the exact nutrient boost livestock need after winter. By never overgrazing and always allowing adequate rest, they ensured the plant could self-seed, regenerate, and expand over time. No replanting, no reseeding, just management that respected the grass's rhythm. This approach required knowledge, not capital. It required observation, not machinery. And it created systems that lasted not just years, but generations. Over time, families who relied on Eastern Gamagrass experienced benefits that went far beyond year-one forage yield. They built systems that reduced costs, increased resilience, improved land health, and created genuine food security for their livestock operations. These weren't abstract environmental benefits. They were practical, measurable outcomes that improved quality of life and financial stability. First, the economic payoff. Once established, Eastern Gamagrass required almost no external inputs. No annual replanting costs, no purchased seed every few years, no irrigation systems in most climates, thanks to deep roots that accessed groundwater during dry periods. Fertilizer requirements were minimal compared to alfalfa, which demands regular applications of phosphorus, potassium, and lime to maintain productivity. Pest and disease pressure was virtually non-existent, eliminating the need for chemical interventions. When you calculate total cost of ownership over 20 years, the difference is dramatic. Alfalfa requires replanting every 3 to 5 years, with establishment costs, seed, fertilizer, and water, adding up to thousands of dollars per acre over 2 decades. Eastern Gamagrass, planted once, costs a fraction of that total. Families who managed even small acreages, 5 to 10 acres, found they could reduce purchased feed costs by 50 to 70% compared to operations dependent on alfalfa hay or grain supplements. That savings compounded year after year, freeing up resources for other farm investments or simply reducing financial pressure. Second, the nutritional payoff. Livestock raised on Eastern Gamagrass pastures showed healthy weight gain, strong immune function, and better overall condition. Ranchers observed fewer digestive issues, likely due to the grass's lower stem content and higher digestibility compared to mature alfalfa. Cattle, sheep, and goats maintained steady body condition throughout the grazing season without the peaks and valleys common in less consistent forage systems. For beef operations, that translated to predictable market weights and reduced need for supplemental feeding during summer months. For families raising meat for their own tables, it meant reliable, nutrient-dense protein without dependency on external suppliers. Third, the resilience payoff. Eastern Gamagrass pastures withstood weather extremes that devastated less adapted forages. During drought years, when alfalfa fields turned brown and required emergency irrigation or complete loss, Gamagrass stayed productive. During heavy rainfall and flooding, those deep fibrous roots held soil in place, preventing erosion and protecting water quality. Families with Gamagrass stands didn't panic during dry spells or worry about losing their forage base to a single bad season. That peace of mind is hard to quantify, but it matters deeply when you're managing livestock and feeding a family. Fourth, the environmental payoff. Healthy Gamagrass stands improved soil structure, increased organic matter, supported beneficial insects, and provided nesting habitat for ground birds like quail and prairie chickens. These weren't secondary considerations for our ancestors. They understood that healthy land produced healthy animals, and healthy animals supported healthy families. The system didn't extract value and move on. It regenerated itself, year after year, decade after decade. That's not nostalgia, that's functional sustainability. One detail most people miss when they learn about Eastern Gamagrass is the phenomenon of tillering, and it explains why this grass was so valuable to ancestral livestock systems. Tillers are new shoots that emerge from the base of established grass clumps, and Eastern Gamagrass produces them prolifically throughout the growing season. What makes this significant is the timing and nutritional quality of those tillers. Early spring tillers, emerging in March and April across most of the United States, contain the highest protein content of any growth stage, often reaching 18% crude protein. That timing is critical. Spring is when livestock are recovering from winter, when cows are calving or lambing, when animals need nutrient-dense forage to rebuild body condition and support lactation. Eastern Gamagrass delivers exactly that, naturally, without supplementation. Alfalfa does not tiller in the same way. It regrows from the crown after cutting, but the regrowth pattern is different, and protein content declines more rapidly as the plant matures. Eastern Gamagrass, by contrast, continues producing tender, high-protein tillers throughout the growing season, especially when managed with proper rest periods between grazing. This means that a well-managed gamagrass pasture offers a continuous supply of high-quality forage rather than a single flush of growth followed by declining quality. Ranchers who understood this adjusted their grazing schedules to take advantage of tiller production. They moved animals through pasture sections quickly, never grazing the same area for more than a few days, and then allowed 45 days of rest before returning. That rest period gave the grass time to produce new tillers and rebuild root reserves. The result was a self-renewing system that didn't degrade over time, but actually improved as the stand matured and clumps expanded. Another overlooked detail is Eastern Gamagrass's relationship with soil microbes. The deep, fibrous root system supports diverse microbial communities that enhance nutrient cycling, improve soil structure, and increase water infiltration. Those microbes, in turn, help the grass access nutrients that would otherwise remain unavailable, creating a mutually beneficial relationship that reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers. This is why gamagrass thrives on soils that would require heavy fertilization for alfalfa. It works with the biology already present in the soil. Modern forage systems often ignore these natural processes in favor of external inputs. The result is soil degradation, increased costs, and long-term vulnerability. Eastern Gamagrass represents a different philosophy. Work with the land, support natural cycles, and let time and biology do the heavy lifting. Eastern Gamagrass didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because agricultural policy, economic incentives, and cultural shifts in the mid-20th century prioritized a completely different model of farming. Understanding why this knowledge was buried helps explain why it's coming back today. In the 1950s and 60s, the United States government implemented policies designed to maximize food production and stabilize commodity prices. The focus was on crops that could be mechanized, harvested at scale, and stored or transported easily. Alfalfa fit that model perfectly. It could be planted with existing equipment, harvested with mechanical mowers and balers, and sold into established feed markets. Federal subsidies and crop insurance programs favored these standardized crops, making them financially attractive to farmers. Eastern Gamagrass, which required patience during establishment and didn't fit neatly into commodity markets, received no such support. Seed companies also played a role. Alfalfa seed needed to be purchased every few years, creating a reliable revenue stream for seed producers. Eastern Gamagrass, as a long-lived perennial, represented a one-time purchase. From a business perspective, there was little incentive to promote a product that didn't generate repeat sales. Over time, native grass seed became harder to find, and fewer farmers even knew it existed as an option. Agricultural extension services and universities shifted their research and education efforts toward high-input, high-yield systems. Land-grant universities trained new generations of farmers in modern methods, and traditional knowledge about native forages was rarely passed along. Older farmers who still remembered how to manage gamagrass retired or passed away, and their children often left the farm for urban jobs. The knowledge didn't transfer. By the 1970s and 80s, Eastern Gamagrass had become a curiosity, something mentioned in historical accounts but not actively taught or promoted. The final factor was cultural. Modern agriculture increasingly measured success by efficiency, speed, and scale. First-year productivity became the standard. Patience, multi-generational thinking, and low-input systems were dismissed as old-fashioned or inefficient. The idea of planting something that wouldn't reach full productivity for 2 or 3 years felt like a waste of time in a culture that valued immediate results. Eastern Gamagrass represented a different set of values: resilience over yield, sustainability over speed, independence over dependency. Those values fell out of favor as industrial agriculture reshaped rural America. The grass didn't fail. The system that valued it simply moved on. If this kind of forgotten agricultural knowledge matters to you, give this video a like. It helps surface rare information to others seeking sustainable alternatives. Tell me in the comments, had you ever heard of Eastern Gamagrass before today, or is this completely new? I read every comment, and this channel grows through shared knowledge from experienced farmers and curious learners. Your input helps preserve what worked before it was buried under industrial agriculture. Today, a quiet movement of sustainable ranchers, homesteaders, and conservation-minded landowners is bringing Eastern Gamagrass back. But the revival faces real challenges that anyone considering this grass should understand. First, seed availability remains limited. Eastern Gamagrass seed is not sold at mainstream farm supply stores. You have to seek out specialized native seed suppliers, often small regional companies or USDA conservation programs. Some state natural resources conservation service offices provide seed at reduced cost or even free for landowners enrolled in conservation programs. But navigating those programs requires time and paperwork. Second, establishment requires patience that modern farmers are not trained for. First-year growth is slow. The grass focuses energy on root development, and above-ground growth looks unimpressive. Weeds can easily outcompete young gamagrass if not controlled, and many new planters give up before the stand establishes. There's a learning curve, and mistakes during establishment can mean starting over. Third, grazing management is non-negotiable. Eastern gamagrass does not tolerate continuous grazing. Livestock left on a gamagrass pasture without rotation will overgraze favorite areas, weaken the stand, and eventually kill it. This requires fencing, water infrastructure, and the discipline to move animals regularly. For operations used to set it and forget it grazing systems, that's a significant adjustment. Fourth, cultural resistance persists. Many conventional farmers and extension agents still view native grasses as inferior to improved varieties. There's a bias toward modern cultivars, hybrid seeds, and high-input systems. Choosing Eastern gamagrass can feel like swimming against the current, and finding local expertise or peer support can be difficult. Despite these challenges, the grass is making a comeback. Small-scale producers who value long-term sustainability over short-term yield are proving that the system still works. Once established, it requires almost no maintenance, survives extremes that destroy other forages, and provides reliable, nutritious feed for decades. If you're considering Eastern gamagrass for your operation, here's how to begin. First, source seed from native grass suppliers or contact your local USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service office. Many states offer free or subsidized seed through conservation programs designed to restore native grasslands and improve riparian areas. Second, plan for spring planting after the last frost, when soil temperatures reach 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Plant dormant seed between December and March at half to 1 inch deep, or use stratified seed between March and May. You'll need 6 to 8 pounds of pure live seed per acre. Third, control weeds during the first year without grazing or harvesting. Mow periodically to keep weeds from shading young gamagrass plants, but allow the grass to establish deep roots. This patience is the foundation of long-term success. Fourth, beginning in year 2, implement rotational grazing with rest periods of 45 days between grazing cycles. Move livestock through pasture sections every 3 to 5 days to prevent overgrading. If harvesting hay, cut once or twice during mid-June to early July before seed heads fully mature. Fifth, avoid nitrogen fertilization during establishment as it encourages weed competition. Once established, Eastern gamagrass requires minimal inputs. You can start with as little as 1/4 acre to test the system before expanding. The key is patience, proper management, and understanding that this is a long-term investment, not a quick fix. Here's how Eastern gamagrass and alfalfa compare across the factors that matter for long-term livestock operations. Alfalfa requires replanting every 3 to 5 years. Eastern gamagrass, once established, lasts 20 years or more. Alfalfa demands regular irrigation in most climates. Eastern gamagrass survives drought with deep roots that access groundwater. Alfalfa needs consistent applications of lime, phosphorus, and potassium. Eastern gamagrass requires minimal fertilization after establishment. Alfalfa is vulnerable to pests, diseases, and winter kill. Eastern gamagrass is naturally pest-resistant and cold-hardy. Alfalfa establishment costs run high every few years. Eastern gamagrass is a one-time investment. Over 20 years, alfalfa can cost $15,000 to $20,000 per acre when you factor in replanting, inputs, and irrigation. Eastern gamagrass typically costs $500 to $1,000 per acre for one-time establishment. Alfalfa provides high protein content in early cuttings but declines rapidly as it matures. Eastern Gamagrass maintains consistent protein levels throughout the growing season, with early spring growth reaching 18%. Alfalfa offers faster first-year productivity. Eastern Gamagrass takes patience but delivers decades of reliable forage. Alfalfa extracts nutrients and requires constant inputs. Eastern Gamagrass builds soil, prevents erosion, and supports beneficial wildlife. The choice depends on your goals, values, and timeline. For families seeking independence, resilience, and multi-generational systems, Eastern Gamagrass offers advantages alfalfa cannot match. Here's something rarely talked about in agricultural circles. Most forage systems failed not because of the plant itself, but because humans tried to force industrial timelines onto natural cycles. Alfalfa became popular because it looks productive fast. You plant it, and within months, you're cutting hay. That immediate gratification matches modern expectations, but fast productivity comes at a cost. Alfalfa exhausts soil nutrients, requires constant inputs, and burns out after a few years. Then you start over. Eastern Gamagrass works differently. It invests energy underground first, building a root system that will support decades of growth. That doesn't look impressive in year one. It looks like you're waiting. But that patience is the foundation of resilience. The more natural the system, the more resilient it becomes. Systems that work with the land's natural rhythms don't break down during droughts, floods, or economic disruptions. They adapt. They persist. They regenerate. Our ancestors understood this instinctively. They didn't measure success by first-year yield. They measured it by whether the system would still be working for their grandchildren. That's the knowledge modern agriculture set aside, and that's the knowledge worth preserving. You don't need more forage options. You need the right knowledge. Eastern Gamagrass is still growing wild across most of the eastern United States. Most people just walk past it without recognizing what it represents. A proven system that sustained livestock operations for generations before industrial agriculture taught us to ignore it. Pick one idea from today. Research native seed suppliers in your state. Contact your local conservation office. Talk to older ranchers who might remember how their grandparents managed native pastures. That's how forgotten systems come back to life, one family at a time. If you want more hidden agricultural knowledge like this, subscribe to the Animal Lost Vault. This channel exists to preserve what worked before it was buried under modern assumptions. Every video uncovers forgotten animal systems that still solve real problems today. Thanks for opening the vault with me. I'll see you in the next one.